Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to Any Given Monday. My name is LJ Finney. I am the CEO of N18. And over the past few weeks, or at least for the month of June, we've been talking about team building events. Specifically speaking about team building, not just picking an activity, but really thinking about what is the best tool for my team building activity, strategic, it builds trust. It helps with collaboration. It increases or has the potential to improve engagement across departments, cross functionally, laterally in title or in rank. And it is going to be a worthwhile investment in your training curriculum or in your people development or process development as you start to scale out and buy or expand into new markets. So today, I will walk you through a proven step-by-step process, the one we use to make sure your next event is both purposeful and beneficial for your team. And the added bonus is that it's also engaging. So before planning the event, we're going to first start with step one. And you can take notes, define your goal. Very basic, very elementary, if I would say, but more so it's setting the intention. What do you want to achieve? What do you want to accomplish? So before you even start with the event, literally write down, what do I want my team to gain from this? And start to list it. Do you want better communication? Do you want cross-functional collaboration? I love this one. You have finance talking to marketing, talking to sales, talking to customer support. Or if you're just a team of one, you have the person that is maybe opening your store or greeting people on the phone or as your admin. They're the first point of reference for your company. So maybe it's between them and you, or maybe it's an opportunity for you to think about how you're going to employ your interns for this summer. So maybe it's cross functional. Maybe it's stronger trust and engagement. Perhaps you've had a lot of turnover or you've had a lot of scenarios where people are distrustful of the process. You're changing or growing into different markets or you're using new technology systems. That's a really good one. And I'm in the midst of a project where that is the case. We are looking at how do you expand or how do you shift into a newer technology platform. And a good example is people's concern about their job being displaced because of AI. So maybe you want to build trust and engagement to help showcase that AI can amplify or make your role more impactful or make your company more impactful, and that it's not designed to just eliminate jobs. And maybe it's for problem solving and critical thinking and helping people look at problems as opportunities. I love using the word opportunities. It's not that you need to solve a problem. The opportunity is in looking at how this problem may be consistent for other people. And now you have a solution that alleviates or removes the pain point. I went to a session and the woman that was speaking, I believe her name is Nellie, said, be the painkiller, not the vitamin. And I thought that was instrumental and remarkable because it was instrumental in the sense that when I was looking at the business service I was providing, it's a nice to have. It's a vitamin in some cases, just the team building piece. But when I started thinking a little bit deeper about what we're solving, the pain point is that people are not staying at companies, people are leaving for better opportunities. They're beholden solely to the compensation and they're not necessarily looking at the job satisfaction, or they're leaving because it's a toxic work environment. And quite honestly, life is short. And if COVID taught us anything, you should be spending your time in a wise way because you just never know what's going to happen tomorrow. So when we think about defining the actual goal, I had a company once struggling with just working across teams, and we used a team building activity to break down the silos. And instead of using generic icebreakers and two truths and a lie, or just random things that no one would retain or care about later, we really designed an opportunity for them to solve a problem that was related to their job, related to their lives, related to their day-to-day interaction, as simple as an email signature. Now, execution is different. How do you execute this idea that everyone dreamed up when you come back to the office? That's a different conversation. But just being creative and thinking about what was bothering them, and being able to speak about it was a good icebreaker because you got to hear everyone's perspective. Now, getting to know each other, that will happen organically, but you can't use a forced conversation like, tell me about your family or tell me where you're from. You can, but if you are in an organization where you're looking to solve a problem, you want to be more thoughtful about that icebreaker or those first few conversations because it will set the tone for your event. So I'd say stronger relationships and collaboration was the outcome because they thought about how do we solve problems together, and then it was facilitated, so it made it a little bit easier for them to get along and work well together. And the biggest mistake that I will say with defining your goal, because if the step one is to define the goal, then the biggest mistake is to have an event, have a goal, but then the activities don't align with the goal. It just becomes another gathering rather than the opportunity for growth that you're seeking or change that you're seeking. Now, part two, question number two, how do you choose the right event? So now you've identified the goal, and now you're looking for a venue, a space, a place, or activity, something that makes it a really great experience. Well, think about, what am I doing that will encourage real connection, not forced participation? Golf can be forced participation. I will be fully transparent. However, the way that we look at the activity, we design it with the intention of everyone participating in some way, shape, or form that is at their comfort level. So if you've never picked up a club you play every Friday on summer Fridays, there is something for everyone. So forced participation is less of a concern, except for the fact that you actually have to come to the event. So that, I guess, would be the forced piece. That is key. It encourages organic and real connection. Number two, you have to think about the personality types. You have people that love competitive events, and you have others, like myself, that don't like them. I don't like competitive events because it brings out different sides of people's personality that I would prefer not to engage in. But that's just me. It makes people less collaborative. Sometimes they become whatever those dark traits are, they tend to come out during competitive events. You're like, wow, that's concerning. Because now you get to showcase and see something that is counterproductive to the work environment you're trying to create. If you're trying to create a highly collaborative work environment, then offering competitive events can be difficult. And I'll give you an example. Most recently, I was at Topgolf, and Topgolf had an Angry Birds competition. So we're just going through, and there's 4 people in the team. One person you could tell was pretty competitive because he wanted to win. He was super focused, and it's a game. No one cares. It's not really, we're not getting a prize. I think we got like Yeti mugs. I don't even know. It was not worth the energy of competing. However, the individual that had never played, for him, it was a competition for himself, within himself, to see could he execute. And I gave some tips, I can withhold information. If I have it, I shared it. And so he was able to apply that and really think about what he wanted to accomplish and reflect. And in that moment, he was just competing with himself, and he was happy with himself, and he was happy to be on the board. So it's in that case that you have to consider the personality types, or at least level set in the beginning. You're working as a team. The goal is, instead of the individual scores, to say everyone has individual scores, but your real goal is to come up with the best team score or come up with the most improved player. Just find different ways to transition or transform what competition organically looks like. And then create moments for reflection. So for everything that's done, you have to speak about what you learned or what you took away, or give people an opportunity to process what they were actually doing. So you want to spark conversations that can be carried forward. I love to ask, how will this change, or what can this do to influence tomorrow, or influence when you come back into the office, or influence your next email? How can today's activity be applied in your life? Real simple. Because in some cases, people reflect about their personal life. One of the past clients we did an effective communication training. And in that effective communication training, one of the tidbits that I shared was, prior to reaction, Build self-awareness by pausing. Don't respond. Be intentional. Let a person speak, listen to learn, and then pause. Do not reply for 5 seconds. It will be very difficult because we're used to just having engagement, talking, speaking back and forth, or you see some individuals speak over one another. And that means they're absolutely not listening at all. They've not heard anything the other person said. I was in a conversation maybe about 2 weeks ago, and the woman just started speaking louder and louder to overpower the other person's thought process or statements. And it just felt very, it was difficult to observe, but you can see where the other person was struggling to feel valued or heard. And you could also see where there was a missed opportunity to hear what the individual was sharing. And coincidentally, they actually had a lot of information that would have been useful for the topic at hand, which I won't disclose because then I'd be pretty much saying the exact event, which I don't want to do. So anyway, how to make team building events inclusive. That's your other thought. You need to think about that. It should bring people together and not make people feel tremendously uncomfortable unless that is the goal. And maybe the goal is to get people out of their comfort zones. That is a different goal, and that requires a different activity or event. But if your event consists of highly introverted individuals, then and high energy adventures may not be a suitable fit. If your activity requires like a lot of aerobic activity and no one likes to exercise or move, then that might not be the best event for that team. So it really just depends what is the culture of the organization, but who are your team members? How do they show up? And that's why it's very important to assess that before choosing an event or a venue. So a leadership team example that I can give, they were focused on a deep conversation and shared learning versus action activities. So in that case, the activities were more like problem solving, puzzles, very engaging, very hands-on and interactive. And that built stronger trust. That also allowed for fresher perspectives and it laid the foundation for lasting alignment. Another mistake to avoid in this case, when we're talking about choosing the right event, is there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all team building event. A great event is going to reflect the actual culture and team dynamic. So you want to be mindful and intentional about that. And finally, I'll talk about, step 3, which is to reinforce the impact beyond the event. So you're also planning what comes next. We did the team building event, or I've got a goal, I found a venue. What do I want to happen after this? It's not just what happens during the event. That's not what team building is. It's about what are you carrying forward? And you can make an impact list. So similar to your goals list, which you can check off as they're accomplished from the beginning when you defined your goals, you also can have a list of things that you want impacted or you want to look at to gauge impact. You want to gather feedback. What worked? What didn't? What did people like? What did they not enjoy? You want to also include actionable takeaways. So what did the team learn? How do we want to continue? What would you like to see next? Here are 3 recommendations of what we'll do in Q the next quarter or the next month or next year. I would not wait till next year for your next activity. I would say do something small and engaging, maybe micro team building events or micro sessions or listening sessions. I love to recommend group coaching. This is a perfect situation where you can take subgroups within the teams and use them to cross-pollinate or have different conversations based on topics that might have been explored. So if I give you my entire process, I sit with the company owner, we talk about their overall goals, I design an event, design what their feedback models are, and then the recommendation is either training, group coaching, or a combination of 2, or a combination of those things. But I don't really suggest individual coaching as much as the group coaching in these scenarios. The individual coaching might be an add-on if you see that there are barriers that the teams are not individually moving through or that trust is still an issue, trusting themselves, trusting one another, trusting leadership. That's where individual coaching may help to shift how they're looking at a problem, shift their mindset, or just build greater awareness around it. I will say the other actionable items that come from the follow-up strategies, or at least thinking about the actionable takeaways, are self-empowerment. How do you want them to take ownership, have some form of agency and autonomy in continuing the growth? Independence, being able to give team leads the ability to design events of their own, share the best practices across the organization, or maybe even like your own internal TED Talks, something that will keep people thinking about the event and the activity. And in this case, reinforcing the theme for future meetings and interactions. So if the conversation is about cross-functional collaboration, or that was your goal, then keep talking about it. It can't be a one and done. There has to be a reminder, or some kind, you're dropping an anchor. So you have to have some kind of trigger to make people think about the event, or think about the goals, or think about what they learned, what they felt, what they were thinking. So you're always looking for a way to reinforce a theme. Some organizations and companies, I like to give them a notebook and to tell everyone to write their notes down throughout the day, and to go back to it whenever the check-ins are, or just look at it and reflect on occasion, just to think about and remind themselves of what the theme is. And I tell the organization leaders, use this as an opportunity to reinforce the theme, of accountability, reinforce the theme of communication or empowerment. That was one of my clients. We called it, those were some keywords that they were focused on. And they're struggling, and then they're not struggling, and then time passes and they're struggling again, but then they go back to their notes, and then they feel revitalized and re-engaged, and they're back to those learning, and they remember to pause, and they remember everything we covered. The biggest mistake to avoid, because I said I would give a mistake for each segment task. If the event is treated like a one-time experience, impact fades immediately. It's a one and done, the impact is gone. It's like going to the gym once and thinking that you're going to have results. And that's good for the day. Maybe you're sore, but it's not lasting change. So leaders must connect the team building activity on an ongoing basis and make it a business priority. Final takeaway, because we're definitely at 18 minutes, your call to action as a leader. Best team building events are not just fun, they're strategic leadership tools. No different than training, no different than an executive retreat. When it's done well, they strengthen your trust, the collaboration, and the engagement. You can't just feed people and think they're going to remember the meal indefinitely. It's not enough. So your action step as a leader: 1, define your goal. What do you want the team to gain from this event? 2, choose the right type of event, make it engaging and inclusive. A movie trip is not a good idea. I don't care what movie it is, because you're just sitting there in silence. See the problem? Then finally, ensuring long-term success. Follow up and reinforce the lessons beyond the event. Maybe you bring in a guest speaker. Maybe you do like your own internal TED Talks. Maybe you rotate training sessions where each team gets to lead a training exercise. My final thoughts: leadership isn't just about strategy. It's about building connected and motivated teams that are self-motivated. They have that can-do attitude. I learned that when I was working at Symbol Technologies back in the 90s, where you wanted to be a can-do team. They wanted us to take initiative. They had this, I'll go into that another day, but these rewards that were given, Poka-yoke, based on Toyota's Kaizen model and just the art of continuous improvement. They were a Six Sigma shop. So you just think about the way these things can be applied in any market, in any industry. So your goal is to build this motivated team and to have them work seamlessly, to have them engage, to pick up the phone and call someone to ask a question. Hey, I know that you're working with this client. Do you have any recommendations on, or can you tell me what they've been using in the past, or what are some of the problems, because I'm going to approach them with this new solution, or we're going to meet with them today. Like, use your resources. Take whatever you've learned in this series and apply it. Commit to crafting team building events. It's still June. I'm heading to a golf outing. I may or may not keep this polo on, but I'm practicing what I preach. I'm living the dream. I'm living the experience. I'm telling you, it is one great way to build a team. Maybe you take your team out to a charity event that your company sponsors or that you're part of to get people working together. Maybe you bring them to my event. I am on the board of Finer Life Golf Foundation, and on July 18th at Pelham Split Rock, we are hosting our fundraiser. We will have 60 children from across New York City, the Bronx, Harlem, and Queens specifically, for a putting clinic in the morning. So do you want to be a sponsor? I think you should. And if so, all you have to do is scan this QR code, go to this website, and check out information about our event. Sign up, bring a foursome. All companies that sponsor a foursome get promotional marketing on the social media page. They get tagged, they get photos. And as you can see, those are some images of the kids from last year. Some of those same children will be there. So if you want to be a mentor and you want to be influential in the next generation of leaders, because that's what we believe golf can do, join us. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Any Given Monday. Join us next week. We will also be talking about team building, but a different perspective for your executive retreats.